Alrighty, so I'll just continue to look and see if anybody else joins us. If they do, then I will add them or not, whatever. But today we will be hearing from Missy Stoltz first. So Missy, take it away.
Thanks, Sarah, and hi, everybody. Don't be shy. Come on in. I am excited to be with you tonight. And actually, I see as one of our attendees is Claire LeBlanc, who's one of our sustainability coordinators too. So Claire, don't be shy if you want to come say hi to everybody. But it's a pleasure to spend the evening with you. And I'll just start by naming, I'm sitting in actually a closet that's been converted in my home. And this is where A20 was adopted for me. So there's a lot of special things that sort of happened in this space. And I'm glad to share it with you all tonight. So I'm going to share my my screen. I have a few slides for you all, but here's the thing. You can watch a video about our office. We have all kinds of things online. I really would rather spend time in conversation, diving more deeply into the topics that are of interest to you all, since we have this moment together. So stop me at any point, put your questions in the chat. I'll try to not talk very long at you, and instead hopefully get to talk with you about this work. So first thing we have to do is participate. So you can use your little raise hand feature or react feature. I'm wondering how many of you, before you did the academy and started or looked at the agenda for tonight, knew about the fact the city has an Office of Sustainability and Innovations? Hey. Okay, like 6 of us. That's great. How many of you have heard of A20 before tonight? All right, that's great. Amazing. Okay. And I guess how many of you have heard of the Sustainable Energy Utility? Okay, this is, oh man, look at that, they're there. All right, great. Good and helpful context. One of the things that we've recognized is a lot of people don't recognize that our office, we're the creators of A20, we're the caretakers of A20, but all of us are the caretakers of A20. So I'm going to talk to you tonight as that person who's lucky enough to get to work on this wonderful initiative. So let's go quick. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what we're doing in Ann Arbor broadly. And you're going to see in a second, there's no universe in which in an hour time, we could talk about everything we're doing. I'm not even confident I could spend an entire 24 hours with you and talk about everything that we're doing, but we are doing a lot. So I'm going to give you kind of a smattering of the things that are going on and the rationale for why we're doing what we're doing, as well as pathways for you to share your ideas, because at the end of the day, this is us. One of the keywords you're going to hear me talk a lot about is together, because the goals that we have are aggressive and the only way to achieve them is by working together. So with that, Sarah, can you give me a thumbs up? You can see the screen. Brilliant. Okay, let's wrap. Let's start with a little history of climate action in Ann Arbor, because we stand on the shoulders of giants. Ann Arbor's been a vanguard in sustainability and environmental protection for quite a long time. This image is actually in A20, so you can take a look at it. Starting back, and this even before this, but starting kind of, we chronicle a lot in 1981, where we started this energy advisory board and we adopted an energy plan. Fast forward, we were one of the founders of ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, one of the first members, which really made sure that local government voices were heard in international negotiations. For a long time, they weren't. Right. And we thought that was really, really important. So the city stepped into that space. We were one of the first to work on LED streetlights. We, in 2012, adopted our first climate action plan. And at the time, in 2012, it was a pretty aggressive plan. It set the goal for a 90% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, which today we know is simply not significant enough. But at the time was very progressive, because most places were looking at an 80% reduction at most. Now, what's also true in 2012 is that this plan was adopted unanimously with no money and no staff, right? And this is pretty common when you look across the country. But what sort of changed as you rounded into 2018 is our office was formed. And so a decision was made that sustainability, which had historically had staff working on it, but they were staff kind of many levels down in the organization. The decision in 2018 was this work has to be elevated. If we're gonna move at the pace and the scale our residents want to, and as science demands, we need to have dedicated people working on it. So in 2018, I was lucky enough to become our first official sustainability director for the city, a role I've held since that time. Kind of as you move through at the bottom, 2019, we passed this climate emergency declaration. This was in November. At the same time, council asked us to move forward with creating A20. And fast forward, we had 82 working days from when council adopted that to when we needed to come back to council with A20 as a plan. And of course, it wasn't called A20 at the time. We didn't know what it was going to be. But I think it's kind of interesting for any urban planners on the line. We often have quite a long ramp to create a plan. And I think the greatest gift that we got in that moment, which I don't know that Missy in 2018 or 19 thought this, but today I do. And that is we didn't have time to worry about perfection. We had to move. And so A20 continues to be this living plan that evolves because the world is constantly changing. And so there is no naivety that what we created was exactly what we're going to do, because that's just simply not true. Instead, what we did is we worked with our community members. One in every 8 Ann Arborites gave us feedback into A20 at some point. We worked with staff because we do have experts on staff. We worked with a technical advisory committee of experts in industry and academia in different sectors. And we worked with peer cities as well as peer-reviewed literature. And we put it all together and said, what are we going to do? And as we were looking at A20, we broke it into 3 phases. Phase 1 was ideation. Every idea anyone threw at us, we took and we just grabbed it. Second phase was prioritization. So now that we have all of these ideas, let's prioritize them based on a series of variables. Is it technically feasible to do that thing? Someone I remember recommended small-scale nuclear reactors in homes, right? That is not going to be technically feasible, at least at that time. Moreover, it's not socially acceptable in much of our community, but like creative idea, thank you for it. So we had to evaluate all of the activities based on a series of metrics. The last phase, or the kind of third phase of A20, was supposed to be a carbon budgeting exercise. Like local governments sometimes do participatory budgeting where they say, we've got X number of dollars, here's a whole bunch of projects, what do you think we should do? So our plan was we had taken everything that we planned to take everything that had been suggested and made it through prioritization, do the greenhouse gas emissions reductions calculations, say, okay, we have to reduce 2.1 million metric tons of GHG emissions. Here's a buffet of options. What do you think we should do? So that was the plan. Remember, we only had 82 days, y'all. So we're moving, like we're sequencing things through. Here's the problem. We got to the end of prioritization and the answer was you have to do everything. There was no room. So it would have been pretty disingenuous for us to have gone back out to the public and say, what do you want us to do? When the answer is, we have to do it all. So instead we changed and said, how should we do this? How do you want to engage in this? How should we pay for this? How should we message this? Those are the core questions that we pivoted to in the third phase. So this is how we got to A20. You can see on the left, we held some big public events, but we actually had 68 public events in those 82 days. We had 80 events scheduled and we had to cancel 12 due to the pandemic because of course we created the plan in 2019 and as we're finishing the plan, we all sequester. So very interesting moment. But this got us to the plan. So A20, we talk about as the plan, the framework, the goals, the actions. It's the brand for what we do in Ann Arbor. A to Z, all the things we have to do to address the climate crisis. Ann Arbor getting to zero climate pollution, right? So the kind of vision we paint is that together we're creating and implementing this just transition to community-wide carbon neutrality. And of course, I know this is audacious, right? Of course, I know this is insanely aggressive, what we're trying to do. I also happen to know it's scientifically necessary. I also happen to know that Ann Arbor has the secret sauce to lead in this movement. We have political support, public support, we have staff, we have a lot of staff experts in this landscape, and we have funding. We can do things that many other communities can't quite do or can't do as fast as we can. We have a moment, and that moment may not always exist for us. And so we're trying to do work that is thoughtful, intentional, purposeful, and truly fundamentally transformative. And welcome to A20 in our office. So I'm going to show you after this slide, the actions that are in A20. And the team gets a little frustrated when I say this, but it's true. The actions are right and wrong because the world is not what it was in 2019. And the example I'll share is telework. We evaluated telework in 2019 and we could not see adoption at a scale that would be meaningful. Well, we were wrong, but it took a global pandemic to show us that we were wrong. So, of course, we think about telework now, and you're not going to see that in A20. You're not going to see the sustainable energy utility in A20 either, because we have to evolve and morph. But the things that do not change in A20 are these 7 strategies. We have to figure out how we are going to power our electric grid with 100% renewable energy. The SEU emerged from this one. We also have to figure out what is beneficial electrification. How are we supporting a transition away from fossil gas, diesel, propane, coal to clean electric? Well, pandemic also taught us to pay much more attention to indoor air quality and combustion in those spaces. We have far more interest and appetite in things like transitioning from a gas burning cooktop to an induction cooktop. How do we support that, right? Third is the thing that for those of you who are energy geeks, we've always talked about, which is energy efficiency. The best thing to do is not use energy inappropriately. If you don't need it, don't pay for it, don't use it. The problem is that most of our infrastructure is terribly inefficient. So the house I'm sitting in has lots of insulation and work, but I can tell you it's still quite cold in the room that I'm in right now. So there's opportunity. Inevitably, that means I am paying some dollars to heat and cool the outside. Those dollars are not being effectively used for me. So we need to find ways to do more energy efficiency in our spaces. This is also like peas and carrots for folks. I think we all intuitively know this, but this is not the sexy stuff that people come to our office for. And so we've had to work pretty creatively to figure out how we help people do the efficiency work that will help with safety, comfort, health, and of course, cost. Strategy 4 is we've got to reduce the miles we travel in our vehicles by 50%. So talking to you today, I'm sure you are all intimately aware of the comprehensive plan and efforts that are underway there. This strategy is inherently about many things. Sure, it's about electrifying vehicles that are on the streets. That kind of also goes into strategy 2 right above it. But it's also about how do you have the ability to walk, bike, scoot, take transit to other places. I think of this in an Ann Arbor way as the Argus test, right? If I need to go get fresh produce or I need to go get fill in the blank, can I get to it without driving? My daughter thinks about this as the ice cream test because she's a child. And so for her, the question becomes, can I get to ice cream that I want without having to get into a car, buckled up, kind of move about? Even if the closest grocery store or Argus for me is technically on a bike route, but it's 5 miles away, I'm driving, right? Let's be honest. If I've got a dinner that I got to get going, I'm going to get there as fast as I can. So how do we change our land use patterns to allow us to have the accoutrements, the quality of life assets accessible to us close to where we are so that we do not have to get in a vehicle? That's a big question. And the comprehensive plan is struggling with that right now. And I don't mean the plan is struggling with it. I mean, it's presenting an opportunity for us as Ann Arborites to really grapple with that question and what land use looks like. Fifth strategy, and Claire works a lot on this, this is kind of her home base, is moving towards a circular economy. People, when I grew up, the vernacular was, I'm going to throw this pen away. It doesn't work anymore. But there is no way, right? Things go places. They go to a landfill. They go to an impoverished community, a disenfranchised community where they're polluting the air, the water, the soil. Things do not go away. Also, there is still a lot of useful life in this. Maybe not as a pen, or maybe actually as a pen, because I could repair it and refill it. But it's metal, and that metal could be melted down and used for something else. So the concept is, how do you keep things in circulation to make sure there's still productive use out of them? The sixth strategy is one focused on resilience, because climate change is already here. We're already experiencing it. All you have to do is look at the flooding, the wild weather shifts that we've experienced, the fundamental changes in winter patterns, the loss of cherry crops that we experience because we go through more freeze-thaw cycles, the potholes on the street that we all get frustrated by. Those are freeze-thaw cycles, friends, that continue to open up that infrastructure. It's almost impossible. I don't know the solution, to be quite candid, because we're going through these wild weather shifts, and the infrastructure is not designed to be able to handle those wide shifts. So how do we invest in the resilience of our people and our place, of our natural systems, to make sure that we can thrive, not just survive, but actually thrive? This is quality of life, as well as things like resilience hub infrastructure that we invest in, natural systems work. And then the last is a crosscut. These are strategies that don't belong in any category because they belong in every category. So things like our metrics and our data tracking, our community engagement, our deep commitment to equity, these things have to permeate all the work that we do. And so they live in this seventh strategy. This is overwhelming. These are the 44 actions that are in A20. I already told you not to pay much attention to them. All of them in red are things that are active programs, but this number is even wrong. We're working on over 70 programs in our office. So we continue to innovate because we have to innovate, right? Because society is changing, technology is changing, cultures are changing, social willingness to undertake this work evolves and shifts. And so we have to be with it. And that's part of what we do all the time. So I'm going to quickly pivot to some actual programs, and then I'm going to stop rambling and get into hopefully a discussion with you all. So I'm going to just quickly frame this based on the different categories of work. The first three strategies I told you about, renewables, efficiency, and beneficial electrification, are all kind of in the energy space. These are just some of the things we're working on. We've got a home energy advisor. If you don't know, this is a free service where you can call and they'll do an assessment for you and give you your customized path to zero, which is different than my path to zero. They'll point you to funding opportunities, ways to make this super, super easy. You can also come if you know let's say you know you need to do a project like your water heater is kind of close to end of life and you want to get ahead of it, but you get different quotes and you don't understand why your quotes are different. They can help you kind of navigate that landscape. So this is like a bat phone that you can call when you don't know what to do. We also offer rebates, home energy rebates that are accessible to the residential sector. That does include e-bike rebates, although friends, they are gone. Please do not go get an e-bike today and expect to get a rebate. They are completely expended. We will reset July 1, but we put $1.9 million this fiscal year to rebates. But there is funding for things like weatherization. You can get $4,000 to $6,000 as a rebate from the city of Ann Arbor, your tax dollars coming back to you to help make those kinds of improvements in your home. I'm happy to pull that up if folks want to talk about it. We also do a lot of education, and you'll see a later slide about this. So we have a home electrification expo. We have a neighborhood program where neighbors actually who've done projects talk to their neighbors about those projects. So it's not Missy sitting here talking to you about the benefits of renewable energy or of efficiency. So your neighbor Michael, who you see all the time walking his dog, telling you about why he did what he did and what the actual savings have been, how his home feels different. It's just much more personal. And then we have a series of policies. We have a benchmarking ordinance, which requires commercial and multifamily large scale to disclose over 20,000 feet their energy and water use every year as a consumer protection. We have a HERD ordinance. This requires when you sell a home, you have to disclose kind of its miles per gallon, but it's HERD, its energy score, helps people understand what it's going to cost to live and operate in that home. And then I was prepped that you may want to talk about green rental housing. There is a lot of misinformation, thank you realtors, circulating right now about this, but this is the third in the trifecta. This is fundamentally about making sure that our rentals are safe, healthy, and affordable for people. We have most of our rentals are solid, and they're doing a really nice job. We do have some rentals that are deeply inefficient, and it's simply not acceptable. And so we are working to bring them up to a base level of performance. We are not talking about a high level of performance. We are talking about a base level of performance. So happy to dive into that if folks are interested. Moving on to the circular economy, there's a bunch we're doing here. Claire works quite a lot on things like swap days, which are really, really fun opportunities to take materials that you may have in your life, appliances, et cetera, that still have use, but maybe not for you, and to be able to swap them with friends, neighbors, your community broadly to get the things that you do need. For me, I think about this. I have a 10-year-old. She's growing very, very fast. And so being able to swap clothing as her body shifts and changes with others, it's not because her clothes are not good clothes. They're just not good for her anymore as her body has grown. And so being able to share those in my community, but also to be able to get the things that we need for her that fit her kind of evolving body at the moment is really powerful. And so how do you keep these things in circulation? We do electronics take back, which is not an electronics recycling event. Yes, we do that, but the point is to keep the electronics in circulation and use as much as possible, and then to decommission them into their constituent parts to actually use them as part of what I was talking about before with the example of the pen. I'm doing a lot of work on sustainable food systems. We're working with local businesses. And then what you see here is an image. We have put in a very large grant that I think it's safe to say we are not going to get because of federal changes. But the good news here is we have built a very strong coalition who's continuing to move this forward, and we'll find funding because we have to. We just don't have a choice. But here we're trying to launch the nation's largest returnable container program. So our core partners in this are a number of local businesses, as well as Ann Arbor Public Schools and the University of Michigan. Idea is to almost completely do away with single-use plastic as to-go containers and instead create a system in which you have containers that circulate in the community. They get cleaned, they get scanned, they get returned. And so you're minimizing the waste, you're keeping things in production. It's local economic development opportunities, and it's just a much more beautiful, clean system. We also know PFAS leaks a lot from plastic, and so this is helping us, and styrofoam, this is helping us kind of keep that under control in the system. So there's a bunch more that we do here in circular economy, but I just want to highlight those. If you're interested, a few restaurants right now actually already have the returnable containers. So you can go and you can request these from some of our pilots. And I just want to shout out these 4 local restaurants because they've been instrumental in helping us pilot this program, figuring out everything from point of service, like how you actually check them out, check them in, what do we need in washing stations, what types of lids are the best lids. All of this stuff has been worked out with these folk, and it's just been a real honor and a gift to work with some of our really important local institutions to do this. Pivoting quickly to resilience, this includes things like our 10,000 Trees initiative, which also falls under circular economy in a way. This is, we've actually hit it. We've already planted 10,000 trees. We do a free tree giveaway in the spring that is sold out, but then those are little saplings. And then we do much bigger caliber plantings in strategic parts of the city. So here you can see us planting some trees in the Bryant neighborhood. We also got a grant from the U.S. Forest Service to look at doing tree planting in private property to help folks manage flooding and to make sure we have tree equity throughout the city, whether that's for managing heat or that's for stormwater purposes or aesthetic purposes, kind of irrelevant, but we want to make sure everyone has access to the beautiful benefits that our trees provide. Do air quality monitoring. We have resilience hubs in the community. These are community trusted institutions that continue to provide services the community wants, desires, and uses. And they can do that every day, including times of disruption. So we've got Northside Community Center, the Bryant Community Center, the Ann Arbor Senior Center, and we are actively working on Peace Neighborhood Center, as well as Green Baxter Court as our 4th and 5th resilience hubs throughout the city. If you're interested, I can talk more about that too. We run an ambassadors program. This is so wrong. I'm sorry, I didn't update the slide. We have trained over 110 ambassadors, and our 7th cohort is meeting in 5 minutes. So we'll pop over there after, but we've got 30 folks who are going through, and these are folks who stand beside us with A20 work. They learn deeply about A20, the programs, the offerings, and they are the ones who go talk to their neighbors. They are the ones who are hosting neighborhood block parties, or they're coming beside us to do projects that help advance sustainability in the community that they have desired, seen, heard, wanted, etc. So this is a little bit more about the ambassador program. As I mentioned, it just kicked off. I know you guys are intensely in this academy. If you are interested, we will be running this again. You can let myself or Bryce, who is the manager of this program, know. We would love to have you join us. You can also meet at some of our bigger public events. Ambassadors will be there talking about their experience and the projects they've launched. We do hold money back for ambassadors to fund projects that they identify. We coach them sometimes through it. Sometimes people come with a project that's a really, really, really good idea, but may not be legal the way that folks have thought of it, which is really, really common, right? Laws are complex. Local governments are creatures of the state in which they exist. You have to understand the nuances of that law. So we'll coach them to say, this is a beautiful vision you have. We may need to tweak in these ways, or we have to tweak in these ways in order for this to move forward. So there's a lot of collaboration with our office. So as we kind of round out here, I wanted to share one of the things that you should never have a favorite. As a parent, I think we all know that, and yet we all probably do have a favorite, if we're honest. This is one of my favorite projects. We've set the goal, working with the residents of the Bryant neighborhood, to create the first decarbonized existing neighborhood in America. And we're going to do it. So we've been working on this for about 4 years. It's all resident driven. They've helped us create everything from the messaging. We hire our community engagement folks from the neighborhood. What exactly we do, how we do it is co-designed with the residents. And I'm delighted to say that today we have secured almost $20 million of grant funding, and we started with 0 4 years ago. But because we've worked so closely with the residents, we sort of snowballed into success. Our first grant allowed us to hire someone in the neighborhood to run community engagement and a few community engagement dollars. So we got a $75,000 grant to do that. And then we got some money to do tree plantings because that was a pain point in the neighborhood. And then we got some funding to do these assessments of homes that residents helped us design. And then slowly we got funding to make improvements in homes. And then most recently, we won $10 million to build a network geothermal system in the neighborhood to handle all the heating and cooling load for the houses. So excited about that. And the sustainable energy utility will be the owner of that asset when we get there. So I know those were projects. I just want to kind of talk about some of the big things in this work that are both unique and also insightful, at least to me, about what we do in our office. So yes, we run programs, and a lot of the work that we do is possible because of you. Because in 2022, we became the 6th community in America, no, that's not true, in North America, to vote to tax ourselves to fund climate work. This is pretty, I mean, it is fundamentally unique. And even the other communities who do, they do it through very different mechanisms. We use a property tax. Boulder has used a tax on their utility bill. Denver has used a sales tax. Those were just not mechanisms that were available to us in Michigan. And so very exciting. This generates just over 7 million a year. It's based on property values. So it fluctuates up or down depending on what properties are doing. But this money is how we're offering these programs. Those rebates I mentioned, this year it'll be, when I say year for us, it's July 1 through June 30th. That's the fiscal year at the city. So the one coming up July 1, we budgeted $2.1 million of that 7 million going straight back out in rebates. That home energy advisor I mentioned, that's completely free because of the community climate action millage. The tree plantings, lots of the services that we offer come directly from the millage. We do a lot of education. We are in the public constantly. I was telling Sarah earlier today, we chatted briefly. This is my 3rd public event this week. And I don't know if you know, it's only Wednesday. So we are out and about. Tomorrow we'll be at Burns Park Elementary School with AAPS talking about what they're doing. Yesterday I was at Wines Elementary School. I did another event earlier today. We have so many events and we are always willing on going and talking to you and your group. So yes, we do big citywide events. We have sustainability forums. The next one's coming up towards the end of the month. It's going to be a great opportunity to hear about folks who've received our Sustaining Ann Arbor Together grant award and how you could apply for that award and what is this award opportunity. So that's a citywide opportunity to come out and hear from us. But we also do things like customized work where we'll go into a neighborhood association because an HOA invited us in and we'll talk about fill in the blank. You want to engage with us around solar? Let's talk about solar and we'll come sit. On Sunday, I'm going to be in a resident's home because they've invited people in to talk about the SEU. So I'll bring donuts and coffee and we're going to sit around a table and talk about it. Claire's running a bunch of swap events in neighborhoods where people want to do swaps that are more central. We've talked about doing a UMich apparel swap with the university. There's all kinds of things that we can do. But on average, every year we're running over 200 public engagement events in our office. We try to be with the public constantly. I live in Ann Arbor. Right. So this is my community too. And I'm really, really proud of the work that we're doing. And I'm really, really proud of our community for being beside us in this work. But the only way that happens is by being engaged deeply in conversation and building trust together. And so that's a core tenet. And public engagement and outreach is in every OSI team member's job description. It is essential to the work that we do. So these are some of the things. If you don't know, the first week in June marks when A20 was adopted. We run A20 week. We're putting it together right now. It'll be June 1 through June 7th. There will be so many exciting things. We're sponsoring the Dexter to Ann Arbor race. Taste of Ann Arbor is coming back. We'll have some sustainable food options there. We are partnering with AFC Ann Arbor, our semi-pro soccer team, where their jerseys are all sustainably sourced materials. And at the end of life, they're going to youth who don't have access to the right kind of equipment to be able to participate in sporting events. So we're keeping them in circulation. We're going to have neighborhood ward parties. There's just a lot of opportunity to engage. And if you've got ideas for how you want to engage with us, please, please, please reach out and send an email in a second. I'm going to skip this. We don't actually do a lot of regulations, but we do have one right now that's going forward in May. That's green rental housing. So happy to talk about that. I happen to spend a lot of my time in this space, which is we intervene in regulatory cases. So our utilities are governed by the Michigan Public Service Commission. I get to be in those cases to fight for ratepayers' rights, to make sure rates aren't going up, to challenge assumptions or things included in a rate case that we don't think are appropriate. We've challenged gas cases and the future of gas. We candidly do not want our utility to be replacing a lot of gas infrastructure. We want them to repair it because we see a future not too far. We see not too far into the future that we're going to be transitioning segments of the city away from fossil gas onto network geothermal. Now, that's still 10 years away for certain areas of the city. For others, it's going to be 20 years away. But the point here is, in Public Service Commission cases, if they're allowed to replace an asset, they get to earn a rate of return on an asset. So that generally it's about 10% that they get to earn on it. We have to pay for, and it's depreciated over a 50-year time frame. Well, if we're not going to use that asset for 50 years, we are leaving the rest of the ratepayers with their sort of bag open, or we have to depreciate faster, which means your rates go up. So our argument is, do not repair infrastructure unless it's at risk. Of course, if we have a risky piece of infrastructure, you have to replace that. So we're really challenging a lot of how our utilities have traditionally functioned, and it is wonderfully complicated. Talked a little bit about this in the Bryant sense, but also we do neighborhood work. So we have the goal of the first carbon neutral neighborhood in Bryant. The second neighborhood has been selected, and it's Pittsfield Village. We also are completely supportive of other neighborhood associations that want to do this work. We have tools, we have kits, we have templates. We will be beside you through the whole work. And then, of course, we have to innovate because we're the Office of Innovation. So we test new things. We work with the University of Michigan on new models. We work with the private sector. We work with Spark on economic development opportunities. And this is just an image of the network geothermal system in the Bryant neighborhood I mentioned. So happy to talk about that. And then the SEU. So this one is interesting. So this was my baby, right? Like this was an idea that I came up with, and that I came up with this idea in 2021. And in November, with just over 78% of the populace voting affirmatively, the SEU was launched. So we have changed the city charter. On Monday night, I go to council for the second reading of an ordinance, which sets the governance structure for the sustainable energy utility. And I'm working to hire an executive director. So I'm fundraising for this utility. I'm helping think about how it's going to operate. I'm doing rate analysis for it. But eventually, this will become a separate department of the city. So this is one that's deeply connected with our office, but also will be separate. It will be separately governed. And so I will be honest, this is a very hard topic for me because it's like a child that is fledging out into the world, and I'm not sure it's ready for college yet, but gonna be beside it, gonna support it and help it go. But this is what I'm happy to talk about too. If you haven't heard about the SEU, I would love to go deeper into what this is. And if you do have questions about the SEU, please feel free to ask. I spend about 50% of my time working on the SEU right now, and 0% it's in my work plan. So sorry, Claire and others, it's a lot to balance. Anyway, that's a little bit about OSI. This is our sustainability email inbox. We have lots of folks who check it. So if you've got questions, thoughts, concerns, anything that you don't want to share publicly tonight, feel free to drop us a line. We generally take about 2 or 3 days, but we'll try to get right back to you. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I see some Q&A, but I want to know, what do you think? I talk so slow, I'm sure it's hard. Feel free to come off if you want to talk about anything.
Do you want me to ask some of the Q&A questions?
Oh, I'm reading them right now. Pittsfield Township, yes. Okay, great. So a question about scaling effectively some of the programs into areas that aren't the city. So the answer is yes, and we design our programs. One of the core tenets that we have as we're designing our programs is scalability, and I would say another side of that is replicability. So it is true that something like our rebate program, you have to live in the city of Ann Arbor. It's city taxes going back, so it's going back to the taxpayers. But a program like our Solarize program, which is a group buy for solar, we created that program so that anyone could use it. And in fact, the state of Michigan has taken it and is scaling it across the state. But we also run group buy groups and invite others from throughout the entire region to join. So our philosophical approach on things like that is one Ann Arborite. If I have 50 people, but I have one Ann Arborite, I'm still serving Ann Arbor. Our tree plantings, well, our water is from a watershed. So we can justify going further up the water stream, I'm sorry, the ecosystem to help manage our water, right? So yes, we intentionally designed many of our programs to be able to scale. It's just direct service provision, literally like me walking into your home to do an assessment. Well, that's paid for by Ann Arbor taxpayers, so it's got to be in the city of Ann Arbor. Anyone want to ask a question live while I read them? I'm very tired of my voice. Hi, Hannah, come on in. Claire, you should come on camera here. Yeah.
Hi, I have a few questions. My
Yeah.
first is about recycled materials that are not accepted in the bins but are accepted at the transfer station. So
Okay.
I operate a retail store downtown and we generate a fair amount of styrofoam waste, and I know that's not supposed to go in the bin, so I fill up my car, I drive it out to Ellsworth and drop it off there. But you also mentioned like wanting to reduce the amount of car usage. So I'm wondering if it's been considered of like putting mini transfer stations in the downtown areas for people to walk and drop off these type of things, or is it just logistically or like in terms of the land use not a very reasonable thing to do?
Yeah, I'll answer that two ways. One is it is really quite complicated in the downtown in particular because we don't have, as you know, there isn't a lot of vacant space where you could store materials without it being contaminated quickly, other exposure. The other thing is this, just full transparency, we don't run solid waste in our unit. So to get into specifics about what has been studied, because it has been analyzed, I'd have to look at our public sorry, our public works colleagues and have them come into the discussion. But this is something that I know we've looked at. Now, what I can say is the Community Climate Action Village is supporting expanded composting services because multifamily, for example, don't have composting services right now. And that's one where we're looking at, can we do like spot drop-offs throughout the city? That would be an interesting model to see if it can scale, but it wouldn't be downtown would be so hard to have a compost pickup, I think, with the existing truck infrastructure.
Yeah, and I know real estate's expensive down there too. My other
Or has it?
question, also related to retail, I've had some customers from like bigger cities ask why Ann Arbor doesn't have some sort of like bag fee, whether that's like some of these plastic bags or whatever.
Yeah, I can answer that one. Because it's illegal in Michigan. So Ann Arbor did. We passed a ban on the bag, or a ban on single use. That's not true. We passed a ban on plastic bags. And the state said, no, you shall not. And instead, the state passed a ban on bans. So they banned any banning of single-use plastic. And then in the last session, we had a chance, it did not make its way out, of doing a ban on the ban on the ban to revoke the state's ban and to allow local governments to do it. But the simple answer, Hannah, is we did, and it's illegal in Michigan. I'm going to grab the ambassador program one. So the question is the ambassador program open to township residents? Yes. We take folks from around the entire region. We just make sure that we have that central core of folks from Ann Arbor. We love seeing that program expand. Do you know anything about the amount of chemical pesticides used throughout A2 that affects our environment, or is that a different program? So Sean Reynolds, who's on our circularity team, does help with some of the permitting around sealant. Oh, it just totally slipped my mind. And then the water department does quite a lot of monitoring of chemicals, pesticides, et cetera, that are entering the water stream. I don't have that data readily available, but I can look in the background and see if I can pull up some more information for you and drop a note in the chat. But those folks, I mean, this is something we certainly think about quite a bit. in particular, we're thinking about like our pollinator aware yard care program is helping make sure we're not using chemicals, especially during sensitive times of the year for different species, and pollinators are just essential for the work that we do. So we do a lot of education, programming, and support around those initiatives. We have community collaborators like Adapt who will actually help you transition your yard into one that is a pollinator friendly yard and that is climate smart. It's using vegetation that can handle existing changes in existing climate as well as projected future changes in climate. So we run programs like that. And then we are concerned about PFAS for sure. And so that's another one that we're monitoring. So sorry, Tess, I don't have more for you. I'm gonna hold for a second while I read the next one. Who else wants to ask? Are you also bored or do you love it? Just love it. Claire, while I read this, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Oh, Claire, so
Yeah.
Claire's on our team. This is not a softball, I promise. Here we go.
So I'm wondering what the best way to stay in the loop. You talked about a lot of really cool projects.
It
So
is a
how can
softball.
people learn about them and know when they're gonna happen? That kind of thing.
What
That
a
was
good
maybe the
question. I'm going to put in the chat and you feel free to as well, Claire, if I don't get to it. We have a newsletter, and that is the easiest way to stay up to date with our office. We do not spam you. It generally goes out once a month. I can tell you it's Earth Month, right? So there's going to be a few more announcements that come out. But broadly speaking, the newsletter is really actionable. It tells stories of what it's like to do this work, a community, like an individual doing something that month that's tied to the theme, as well as a local business, nonprofit, et cetera. And then it's going to list opportunities to engage. So in one given month, this may be a terrible month for you to get involved in an OSI event. We understand. But next month might be a great month. So the newsletter presents a way to stay up to date with what's happening. Make sure you know when new rebates are launched or new programs are available, like our new heat pump concierge that launched on Monday. That's an opportunity to stay involved. So I will one day find this link. It's super easy. I'm just having a moment, and I will drop this in the chat for you all. You can sign up for the newsletter. Here you go. It is a blue button on this guy. Oh, I can't do Q&A.
You might just want to put it like in Leslie's or Tessa's like answered.
Yeah, you know what I'm also gonna do, Sarah? I'm gonna send it to you because I think that'll be great. Then you can get it back out.
Yes.
Let's see, Lupton. Since is our largest business owner here, and they also have big plans for growth, how closely are you working with them to get to 820? Are they helping fund any 820 programs? Yeah, we work pretty closely with the U, but that has not always been true. So in my first few years, it was really relational, building trust with the different stakeholders of the university. And then more recently, the university, as folks may know, have hired senior leadership on sustainability. And so those are the folks I get to work with regularly. And we're doing quite a few initiatives together. Claire helped host with the university a week-long zero waste challenge that just concluded. Gosh, I don't even know what time is anymore. A few weeks ago, like, is it January, February? What do you think, Claire?
It was in February, so
Oh my gosh, that was only a
a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just crazy. So there's initiatives like that are more focused on education. We do a move in, move out initiative as well. There's a lot of material that gets tossed. And so trying to recover as much of that as we can is one of the things we work on. We have a number of student groups that we engage with on these topics. When students are at the University of Michigan, they're still Ann Arborites if they're living in the city. And so we want to bring them into the movement as well and be really like, we want to invest in their civic nature. We want them to be excited about this work. We want them to see what's possible. And so we do programs with folks like Planet Blue Ambassadors, the Sierra Club chapter, many, many others. And then administratively, I'm working on solar programs with the university. They're going to be building 25 megawatts of solar. There's a community benefits element. I'm helping them think about how to invest in places like Ann Arbor, Flint, and Dearborn with that community benefit. We're talking about jointly launching elements of the sustainable energy utility together, thinking about Palmer Commons. They're doing a major geothermal field there. Palmer's that's actually a terrible example because there's not a lot around Palmer that's city owned. But if we did, let's just take the hospital as an example. If the hospital were to do a geothermal field, I could expand that field in collaboration with the university to pick up the park. Or in other areas where the university has more kind of like satellite spaces, surrounding neighborhoods could be picked up through a geothermal system. This is a conversation I'm having with Ann Arbor Public Schools right now, which is as they're doing and implementing their bond, their capital bond, they are doing solar and geothermal at a number of sites. And of course, most schools, especially elementary schools, are in neighborhoods. So I was at Wines last night thinking about what if Wines and Forsyth in their geothermal systems, actually they build, but it spiders out to the surrounding neighborhoods. And what if that's true in Burns Park as well? We could do the entire park. And geothermal just goes under the ground. You still have a park, right? Once you just cover the wells, but we could then spider out and pick up all the households into a network geothermal system. So those are the kinds of conversations that wouldn't have been possible when I first started at the city, but we've built enough trust and rapport. And I think we have shared values in many of these spaces that are leading to really, really fruitful and intriguing conversations that I think will, in not too long, lead to tangible improvements you'll be able to see. More questions? Let's see. What type of incentives are being considered to prioritize active transit and reducing emissions, especially with tens of thousands of commuters and sport events? Yeah, this is a good one. So we are very invested in regional transit. Ann Arbor actually has a pretty solid transit system. And I see you, Hannah, excited for you to come back in. No, the transit system, the Ann Arbor Area Transit Authority, is not run by the city. So I have to work collaboratively with my peers over there to do work. And sometimes that's really hard. In fact, I will like totally tell you that that is probably the hardest organization I work with in the city in terms of our climate goals. University has a climate commitment. Ann Arbor Public Schools has a climate commitment. The ride does not. And so it is hard to find that shared space sometimes to figure out how we're going to move initiatives forward together. Broadly speaking, though, we know that having better transit is really key, but also being able to live close to the accoutrements you're looking for. Can you walk, bike, ride to the grocery store, to a restaurant, to get diapers if you have a small child? And if the answer is no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you have a transit system. You need to be able to have mixed land use in spaces to get to where you want to go. We also are working on park and rides and expanding park and rides so that folks can get to the city. Now, of course, I'd rather have regional transit, and there is conversation about restarting a regional transit kind of a program so we could have regional rail. I don't know if you're aware, but the state is looking at restarting the study to initiate regional or not regional transit from Ann Arbor to Traverse City, and looking at a lot of the rails that right now have been completely transitioned to freight and bringing them back for passenger rail. So we're following that and super excited about those prospects as well. So we're looking at how do we build the infrastructure that's going to take some time, and in the interim, how do we help that when you get to the boundary of Ann Arbor, you have more choices. So can you park at a park and ride and then get on a bus and come downtown? Parking is a really terrible use of infrastructure. Having an open spot when we've got a housing crisis, when we have a climate crisis, like that is not a good use of infrastructure. People hate this. I know this is a deeply personal issue. When you go to dinner downtown, you go to New Echelon, you want to park close to Echelon. I hear you, I see you, I understand. And we think we should be preserving parking for those who need parking because of accessibility concerns, et cetera. Cars in, I want to close Main Street to cars. It's a poorly kept secret. Cars do not spend money. People spend money. People outside interact with people. People moving from A to B as fast as possible in a car is really, really bad for public health. Most of the traffic fatalities that we've had in the city, if not all of them, have been because of speed. So getting people out of cars, slowing cars down, that may not be delightful for our commuters, but what that does is save lives. And so we work on all of these things, and I know it's convoluted, but the point is there isn't a single answer. We have to do all of these things. We have to do traffic calming. We have to incentivize people doing the right thing. We have to give them the right infrastructure to do the thing we want them to do. And honestly, you make it a little painful eventually when you have those other things for people to continue to do the thing you don't want them to do. but you cannot make it painful, at least I think, for them to do the thing that they've been doing when you don't have alternatives. I don't think that's a very equitable way to address the problem. So thanks for the question, Laura. Hannah, you want to come in?
Yeah, so I was hoping you could talk a little more about the green rental housing ordinance. We've
Sure.
been discussing it a lot at the Renters Commission, and we generally like it. Like, we love the idea of like improving the habitability of units, but we do worry about the affordability aspect because Ann Arbor, our rent prices just keep going up and up and up.
Yeah.
So if you just could talk about that generally.
Yeah, this is a talking point that baffles me because we're hearing it quite a lot. And I think it's not coming with, I think it's coming from people who care, and then it's being fed by perhaps malicious actors. And what I mean by that is when you think about rents, solely in what you pay for rent, that's only part of the equation. Most renters also have to pay utilities. And in many situations, the rental is fine. Green rental housing, well, in many situations, the rental is fine. In some situations, the utility bills are they're astronomical because the place is not, it's not safe. It's not healthy. It is not properly insulated. That's a problem that has to be factored in. And so green rental housing is focusing on that segment of the marketplace. So the proposed green rental housing ordinance is a consumer protection ordinance that discloses what is happening in a rental unit as people go to look to rent that unit. So we have two pathways that folks can get into compliance. One is you get what's known as a home energy rating score. A home energy rating score comes in and actually says this is kind of how efficient a unit is. And the score that we're using, well, a HERS score, it's a standard score, goes from 150 to worst possible performing, that's 150, to 0, which is a net zero energy home. We're proposing a 110 score. Now, we're working with HERS assessors. They have not seen a 110 score in Ann Arbor. Everything is better than it. So we have a hyperbole, right? That this is going to blow up the market. A HERS score is also good for life. So once you get it, you have your score, right? So 110 means we are working at the most foul actors in this landscape. This is pretty bad to be a 110. I'm trying to find a 110 so I can show you exactly what I mean when I say, or a 110 or worse, how bad it has to be a 110. So there's a lot of this idea that it's going to cost a lot of money to repair. I don't understand it because most of the market is performing. The other opportunity, if you don't get this HERS score, because you have choice, you can do a checklist. And the checklist has options that range from education, safety, emergency preparedness work to physical changes in the space. And sometimes in units, they've already done everything. So they just fill out a checklist and submit it and they're compliant. There's nothing to do. They've already performed. For others, they will have things they have to do, but they're choosing that pathway and they have to submit documentation. You can get points for doing a swap day with us. You can get points for alerting your residents how to sign up for emergency alerts. So when something happens in the community, they can get informed. So there's multiple pathways to success here. It's up to the landlord or the property manager, whoever it might be, to choose which path they take. It is possible that it could lead to some cost expenditure. We are also trying to provide financial incentives to help people make improvements. But at the end of the day, people are already paying in those worst performing areas to live in a terribly performing rental unit. And we do not believe that anyone should have to sacrifice their health and safety to live in the city of Ann Arbor. And so we want to bring those really underperformers to a base level of safety. That's what the green rental housing is about.
Thanks. Would you estimate that a lot of the landlords are going to choose the HERS score route since you're saying like a lot of them are already qualified?
We want them to. We're trying really hard to get them to do the HERS score because that's also factual information that is useful for us and for them to understand. A HERS score is like a home energy score for you in a single family home. It tells you what you're doing well and what opportunities for improvements there are. That I think is really powerful and also helps our office because if we know across rentals, there's a huge opportunity for insulation, well, we can create an insulation program. Right? We can help incentivize it. Absent that, it's hard to know what the market looks like. So we actually want to try to move people towards HERS. It's also performance-based, right? And again, it's good for life. So I think this happens a lot when a regulation comes forward. You kind of have this like big reaction. And so we're trying to help people. And there's a whole bunch. I'll send this also to Sarah. Our fact sheets, our videos, details about, you can see the whole checklist. Please, 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 please ask us questions about this. We have seen the campaigns that are going around. I don't think they carry water, candidly. But that said, they're fear-based, they're scare tactics, and those can be quite effective.
I appreciate that. We've been getting a lot of landlords and property managers complain about it, so it's good to
Yeah.
hear. My
Yeah,
last
and
question,
they're
sorry to
organized,
keep rambling
right,
about
Hannah?
this, but
Yeah,
will like
yeah.
this data
I
that
don't know. I
or
have to
whatever,
put on armor all the time. I'm ready to go into battle on this one.
will this information, like the HER score assessment, will that be available on
Yes,
screen for tenants to look up?
yes, it will be public. Yep. And that's the consumer protection element, right? The people should have access to that information when they're making a decision about where to rent. Yeah. There's a question in the chat, and I know I only have another minute, Sarah, so I'm going to take it
Yes.
and then happy to follow up. Beyond the restaurants you mentioned in the university, what other private sector or corporate or financial sponsored partners do you have? So financial sponsors, no, because we're a government. So we have philanthropic dollars, we have some federal dollars, but like we don't have any financial sponsors. There's none of that sort of involved. We do have our 820 community collaborators, which are 130 plus organizations strong, and they're working with us on some element of implementing 820. So those are nonprofits, public institutions, the county, other municipalities throughout the state, national nonprofits, and many private sector actors do come in because they care about recycling or compost, or they care about the circular economy or energy. And so they can join us on the journey. If you're interested in becoming an 820 collaborator, please feel free to reach out to us. The only caveat here is you have to work with us on something in 820. And luckily there's a lot, so there's opportunity for everybody. Great. Sarah, I think I'll stop there and just say thanks everybody for engaging. I hope you're not bored out of your mind. And please come say hi to us. We have a lot of public events. This is our work. It's us, right? You are part of this. You are part of the movement. And I guess I know I said it. I'll close with my personal favorite saying right now because it's keeping me hardened in dark times. The best time to act was yesterday. The next best time to act is today. And that's what we're going to do together. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank you, Missy. Every single time that you come, you have added 12 things. So I really, really appreciate you and everything that you do. And it is beyond that our city gets to have such an intelligent force that wants to propel this forward. So we appreciate you a lot. Alrighty, so that was sustainability. Now we are going to shift over to information technology. If somebody can tell me, do I have all the participants in or, oh, Dave Harris, I'm missing him. 1 second. Okay, I am going to kick it over to Josh Barone, who is our, this has changed, director? I don't
Director,
know.
yep. Yep.
Director.
All right.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. And welcome, everybody. Thank you for letting us come in and share a little bit of time of your evening. Hopefully this will be informative. We'll try not to be boring. Tech can be a little bit boring for sure. So the plan is just to kind of give you an overview of City IT. We get the pleasure of being kind of the behind the scenes support for all of the wonderful departments that a lot of you folks interact with on a daily basis. And we're very proud of that fact. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and start with a brief presentation. All right. So as Sarah mentioned, my name is Joshua Barone, and I'm the city's IT director. I've been with the city, it'll be 19 years in August, so I've been here quite a long time. I've been the director since November, the full-time director since November, and very excited to learn new things and fill out that role. I have several managers with me tonight, and I will turn it over to them when the time is right. A couple of folks couldn't make it, so I will do my best to fill in their absence. Would love this to be collaborative. If you have any questions, feel free, raise your hand, use the question feature, and we will answer them to the best of our abilities. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get it kicked off. We have 32 full-time members. This is new as of fiscal 25, the current fiscal year we're in. We're actually granted 3 additional FTEs in this current fiscal year, which is very exciting for us. We had the city continued to grow for quite some time, and the IT department didn't really grow commensurate with the rest of the IT world. So with the rest of the city staff. So we were a little inundated with a lot of work. So we were granted 3 additional employees. We're very excited about that. So tonight we're going to talk about the networking team, and that's Dave Harris is the manager there. Cellular infrastructure team, that's Manny Montoya. Infrastructure cybersecurity, which is Jennifer Grimes. Help desk is Marcus Davis. Apps delivery and BI is Jake Chase. And then last but not least is enterprise applications and change management, and that's Kevin Iyer. So without further ado, I will kick it over to Dave to talk about networking. You there, Dave?
He's coming, sorry. That was my bad.
It's great when it works, right?
All right, there I go. Took me a few seconds here. Hi, everybody. My name is David Harris. As Josh mentioned, I am the network manager for the city, and my team supports all aspects of network connectivity, the physical security, and the voice over IP phone system. We also ensure that the city's network is always operating at full potential with minimal downtime. The network team has a wide variety of responsibilities, as you can see below. At the top, we have the fiber optic network. Fiber optic cables connect all of our city buildings, locations, and traffic control together. These cables can be as short as a couple feet, connecting devices that are sitting right next to each other. They could also be miles long, enabling connectivity between sites and multiple sites. Next, we have the network connectivity. This can be broke out into a couple areas. First of all, we have the core network, which is redundant and resilient. And which this means is that the core has multiple physical paths that allow it to reroute traffic in the event we have a fiber cut or a core network switch goes offline. If a certain location goes offline, only that location is affected, and all other locations operate as normal and they know nothing is going on. At the edge of the network is where our end user and device connectivity happens. We have over 300 network switches throughout the city, providing network connectivity for computers, printers, phones, wireless access points, traffic controllers, and other types of devices. Next up, we have the wireless infrastructure. So we have over about 200 access points throughout the city that provide wireless connectivity for the public to access the internet at many of our locations, but it also provides our internal staff to access our internal secure network also. Next up, we have physical security, and badge readers protect against unauthorized access by requiring the person to have the appropriate permissions applied to their badge in order to access an area. Next up, we have video surveillance, and security cameras are located in certain facilities, which are effective tools for us to monitor those locations to keep our employees, buildings, and our records safe. And last up, we have our voice over IP system and phone system, actually, and my team supports all aspects of that phone system, including the server environment, setting up the phones, configuring call trees, call routing, and voicemail. So that is what the network team does.
Thanks, Dave. Next up is our cellular infrastructure team. Unfortunately, Manny couldn't be with us tonight, so I'm going to do my best to fill in. But basically, the cellular telecom team We manage contracts with vendors, so Verizon, AT&T. We generate about $800,000 annually in revenue. We shoot for a 4% annual increase year over year. That number can change depending on if a vendor or carrier is willing to add additional locations with us. We are sometimes willing to shave off some of that annual increase in lieu of adding additional locations, which is always good for us. We tried our best to identify potential public-private partnerships. We partner with private companies. This is really around where we have gaps in coverage. Infrastructure management. So we promote the city-owned properties. These could be water towers. Several of our buildings have infrastructure, parking, garages as well. We manage the right-of-way infrastructure for small cell wireless. And basically, this is when someone comes along, a vendor comes along and wants to put a cellular infrastructure in the right-of-way. That is something that we manage. And the state allows us to collect a small fee for that, but it's really a pittance compared to the work that goes into it. And then last but not least, the regulatory and compliance management. This allows us to make sure that everything is done based on regulatory requirements, safety is met, and we're meeting all compliance goals. So that's essentially the cellular infrastructure team. Now, the infrastructure team, this is Jennifer Grimes. I'll turn it over to her.
Good evening, all. So as Josh said, my name is Jen Grimes. I oversee the infrastructure team at City of Ann Arbor. So I have 5 people that report to me. And some of what we do for the city and for IT is we have over 200 servers that we support that provide, whether it's you, the citizens, or our city staff with services and technology to let them do their jobs. Nowadays, we have our server architecture is, Microsoft Windows and VMware Hypervisor, although there's been a lot of shakeup in the tech field. So it'll be interesting to see when I give this presentation next year, if I still say that or I say something different. We also support things like application virtualization that can make it easier for us to deliver complex applications to our staff desktops. One of the critical things that we provide to the organization is providing server storage and backup so that we have good resiliency and protection from any data loss or any security threats. Printing always falls to us, and supporting hundreds of users printing, there are a significant number of printers and print servers that support that printing infrastructure. We also facilitate desktop imaging, so that's getting fresh desktops and laptops in the hands of staff, and there's software updates, and we do as much to automate to reduce the significant amount of work that there can be to keep all of our security products up to date. We've moved products to the cloud where it makes good sense. So nowadays, Microsoft 365 is where a lot of the office industry has gone. So we certainly do that as well. And we do things like support 2 data centers throughout the city where we host all these critical server and network infrastructures for the organization. Next slide, please. Some of the cybersecurity aspects that my team oversees is obviously we're always concerned with risk mitigation to make sure that we are keeping the environment safe. One thing we do for staff is we do cybersecurity awareness training. The phrase human firewall always comes up, where it's not just about the products that I deploy to keep us safe, but keeping all the city employees well trained and having them do good security habits is really important. Along those lines, we also send out probably unpopular phishing tests where we kind of emulate the bad guys to try to keep people on their toes and make them, use good caution with emails. One of the modern security aspects that we have deployed is multi-factor authentication. So it tries to make sure we're keeping the bad guys out and the person signed in is truly who they are supposed to be and they're a valid city employee. We oversee firewalls to keep the bad guys out, and then we're always running the latest antivirus and malware software to keep our endpoints safe. Nowadays, antivirus goes to what's known as EDR or XDR, and that's like enhanced or extended detection and response. So that kind of takes things state of the art to some of the more modern protections. One of the biggest things that my team does is there's just countless software applications and security patches to think about all the time. We're constantly getting inundated with emails about the latest 0-day threat and how our peers might be falling victim. So staying on top of patching is a big part of what we do. And nowadays, one of the industry standards is running zero trust security, which means we're extremely cautious about how we give out security rights. So we're not over granting rights. So that is just a bit of what my team does for IT. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Is Marcus on, Sarah?
Not that I see.
Okay, that's okay. I will do my best to fill in the gaps for help desk, and by all means, Dave and Jen, if you want to add anything, please feel free to add in. So help desk is really the primary boots on the ground support for all of our various endpoints at the city, all the various locations. So we have locations all throughout the city, over 1,000 computers. We take about 400 to 500 help desk tickets monthly. So typically the way that those work is they will come in, our help desk staff will triage those, and if it's something that falls under their purview, typically they will try to handle it and then close the ticket out there. If it's something that needs to be escalated, typically they would escalate it to a specific group or a specific person, and then their kind of responsibility moves on to the next person. So manage the desktop computing environment, working very closely with Jen's team, troubleshooting hardware and software issues. As you can imagine, as we get new software and hardware requirements are always changing and we're always doing upgrades, sometimes there's conflicts that go between the two, and oftentimes they're hard to diagnose. So they spend a lot of time doing that. Provide IT-related training to city staff, purchase IT-related equipment. This is the periphery type stuff. So if you want a new monitor, mouse, ergonomic keyboard, that type of thing. This is particularly picked up since COVID, when a lot of folks moved home and are adding additional equipment at their homes. Responsible for hardware and software asset management. So that is making sure that the assets that we have, they go through a range of life of I think it's 4 years for the majority of our hardware, and tracking when each department is due for PC replacement. So that's primarily there. The other item that's not listed on here, but it actually takes up quite a bit of time and energy, is onboarding and offboarding. So the help desk system is very key in sort of acting as the liaison between all the various groups to make sure that when a new person comes on board with the city, that they have the proper network credentials set up, they have the proper hardware that's required for their job, software, that type of thing. And the same goes true for when folks retire or they leave the city for another reason. They are responsible for making sure that the access gets cut off and that all of that software gets removed so that we're not paying for licenses that we're not using. So that pretty much sums up the help desk. Now we'll move into apps delivery with Jake.
Sorry, Josh, can I say one more thing about the help desk?
Absolutely, you can.
Help desk also helps with elections.
That is true.
And
Yep.
especially during the years where we have 2 to 3, they are an integral part of it. They help actually put together all of our packages of our electronic poll books, which is about 47 to 50, depending on placement of precincts. And then they also help set up our satellite offices that we have on campus. We have 2 of them. And I just wanted to say that because they really, really do a lot. Their whole team is with us, especially during the 9 days of early voting. We always have somebody on call so that way they can go out and they can help us troubleshoot something. And this is actually very, very rare. A lot of townships, a lot of villages, a lot of other cities even do not have this type of a relationship with their IT department when it comes to elections. So we are very, very grateful for that.
For mentioning that, Sarah, and that actually reminded me of one other item, amongst I'm sure many that I'm forgetting, but a lot of the city's boards and commissions and meetings are broadcast live via CTN, and the help desk always has a live person sitting there in case trouble comes a knocking. So they're always our first line of defense when something happens. And those televised meetings are always a bit cumbersome because there's the AV component of it that is CTN, and then there's the IT component, which is everything else. So so thank you, Sarah, for mentioning that. And so with that, we'll move on to Jake Chase with apps.
Hello, everybody. I have the longest job title in the city. It's the Applications Delivery and Enterprise Business Intelligence Manager, which is, I'm kind of excited about that. I just started in this role in January, so it's been really fun getting to know more about this team, even though I've worked here for 12 years. So what the apps delivery team does is support applications, data, and processes used by the 40 plus service units, which is what, most places call that a department. We call it service units because we want to be different. But we're supporting them through all their day-to-day duties, the responsibilities, often with software, but sometimes just giving like technical advice and helping with project management and so on. So we typically will go out and help departments look for systems, and we look for that best of breed functionality so that we can then integrate these systems together. So our finance system might integrate with our park system so that they can talk after after people pay for day camps and stuff like that. So we focus a lot on that. We have a lot of integrations. We have a lot of software, and we try to tie it all together the best we can so that it all works pretty seamlessly. We also have to manage a lot of vendors as a result. So we always have to work with these vendors to make sure we're getting the right service, getting the right software. There are times we're not, and we have to go find new software. And but we also work with them on tickets. Put in tickets for that software to help us fix problems, and so on. We also focus heavily on business process improvement. It's kind of one of our core tenets that when we focus on a problem in a department, we're like focusing on, we ask those questions to try to drive down to the heart of what's going on. And hopefully sometimes you end up asking those questions like, well, why are you doing that? And no one really knows the answer. It's like, well, we've been doing that for 10 years. And that's when you circle back and you can say, okay, let's take a look at how this business process works and how it could be improved. And that really helps. We've found so many inefficiencies in these service units and help them evolve their processes to make full use of technology. Project management's huge as we need to basically we don't have time to have software implementations that don't work. We need them to work the first time. And we have a pretty high success rate on that. And that's, I think, partially due to our project management methodologies that we use pretty consistently throughout the city. And IT leads these projects. So we lead the projects for all of the lines of business, for all the departments really in the city, unless they're being really bad. And then they get a talking to by Josh. So, and then, again, I mentioned systems integration. We do integrate all over there. Some of the team are also developers, and we do need to occasionally, not only do we need to develop integrations, sometimes we need to develop custom web applications and things that will sit out, whether internally or externally. I've been involved in many of those myself, so it's something we try to avoid it when unless we really have to, but when we do have to, we try to just make it as maintainable as possible. And then, of course, business intelligence. And we have a business intelligence platform, and we've been expanding over many years the reports available for both public consumption and internal consumption to have better informed decisions throughout the city. Right, and so here's some examples. So internal city department support, and some of these, like, you would never hear about them as a resident, but we do have a work order management system called CityWorks that's used to track when they need to go and do work on various pieces of equipment throughout the city. And we also have, for finance, there's an accounts receivable and accounts payable software. And we're supporting the finance department. So when they want to make changes to their software, or they want to make changes, same with the work order stuff, there's always work being done in CityWorks. And so when they want to make changes, we have to be able to help. Human resources, they support quite a few full-time employees and part-time employees and election workers. So we need to make sure that their systems work. We need to make sure that their processes work smoothly. We support safety services, police and fire, I was just at the Emergency Operations Center today, looking at new records management system software, which we are looking at, currently. So that is, we support them and all the work they do, and they need a lot of software to do what they do day in and day out. They need to report up to the state, they need to report federally, and these things wouldn't be possible without software they could rely on. Records management for police is huge too, because it tracks all the evidence. So they need to be able to, collect evidence and store it long term. And this is often digital evidence. Like, how do you store videos, especially when there is a witness to a crime and they recorded it on their phone? Well, how do you collect that video and store it for basically ever? You need to store that for a long time. So these are all things that we have to consider. The legal department also manages cases throughout the city. So we will need to, we have to assist them, because when there are new contracts that need to be worked on with vendors, or someone's suing the city, or maybe we're suing someone, I don't keep track of them, but they have to create these cases and track their time and make sure that they're being accountable as well. We also have resource planning. So we have this software, you probably know it as Stream. The software goes by Energov, and that's where they track permitting, they track, licensing and all sorts of things. We're building that out every day. It's getting more and more extensive. It's a very large piece of software, and it's many different service units work in it. Water and wastewater functions, there's software that they use to track all sorts of tests on our water systems. And it's actually quite fascinating. I probably would mangle most of them, but I know I've helped with some of the reporting over there, and they're tracking ammonia, they're tracking phosphates, and there's just a whole slew of things that they track day in and day out. The work they do is amazing to keep our drinking water safe. And there's also a capital improvement plan, which we support often through CityWorks, but also through other departments, to make sure that we're supporting these capital improvements. And these vendors that we manage the relationships with, they're often outside contractors, but we also have relationships with the state, with the federal government, even with other municipalities. Like the Oakland County is the one who developed one of our police systems, and so we use that, and we have a relationship with them. Stuff like golf course software. We have software called 4Up. So if you wanted to go book a tee time, you would do that through some of the software we support. Chase Bank for payroll taxes. We have other payment systems as well, which we have to manage multiple payment vendors, which can be quite complicated, and make sure that they're all in compliance. And then as well, benefit providers, just managing that relationship. Now, often HR does some of that too, but we're helping along the way. Okay, and then so yeah, for the public support, we have Energov, which is Stream. That's for land management, permitting, licensing. There's utility billing. So when you get a water bill in the city, that's all managed through one of our software platforms. And that has extensive use, where anytime there's anything water related, it's all being managed in there. It's not, there's customer service is the main owner there, but we support them heavily. Something like a Parks and Rec class registration or a day camp, that's through one of our software platforms as well, and our parks system owns it, but we support it heavily. If you were to go and want to comment on or even just see when a border commission or city council is happening, that would happen through our legislative management software, which is publicly available for transparency. There's also A2Fix-It, which we use for, if you need to report a pothole or your trash wasn't picked up, things like that, you can get the app and report it right through there. That's another, we manage that through with the support of a vendor. We have integrations all over to help with A2Fix-It. And so golf course tee times, that's again that 4Up software, but this is publicly available where you can just go sign up. Yardy, the Housing Commission, they use that over there. and kind of manage a lot of the housing related documents and things like that. And then for water consumption, there's a software we have called AquaHawk, which can be used to kind of track your water consumption. And that's pretty neat. There's well, I have COVID time, so I want to say recent, but that means like years ago we got it. But it's a really neat tool. And then A2 OpenBook, which is a transparency in payments. You can go and look up, how much we paid vendors for things and kind of understand how we do some of that tracking and some of that budgeting, which is really neat. Right, and then here is the final, this is what makes my title the longest title in the city, is the business intelligence part. So we have this business intelligence side of the apps team, and it's really, really amazing work. So basically, we take both internal, it's always internal requests from, city staff from different service units, and they will ask us to help them visualize data. And some of the things we've done, I can show here. This top right one is from the air quality dashboard that I think was referenced in the Q&A, and I put a response in there with a link to it. So if you wanted to see the link to that, you can go into that Q&A and go into the answered questions. They're tracking all sorts of, for those sustainability air quality sensors, you can go and see all the data. And it's really neat to see how we're tracking it, and we're even getting more components to put out in the field and track more things. So it's being built out as we speak, basically. In the bottom left, you have fire. How many training hours by month are they doing? And they wanted to track this they track a whole slew of metrics, but this is one way that they can make sure that they're keeping on track with training. And then in the bottom right, this is there's a program called Solarize. This is a map that shows, it's an internal map. You can't get to this publicly, but it shows where people have purchased through Solarize. So you can kind of see that we use this data to track how effective we're being in our programs and to help us measure it. And when they bring us in, sometimes they don't know what they really want, and we can work with them to help narrow down what would actually be a meaningful metric to track here. And then that can drive further improvements down the line. And Josh, I don't know if you want me to do enterprise since I just
Sure.
just came off
Go
the
ahead.
team. So I was on the enterprise team for just about all of the 12 years except the last 3 months. So I probably can talk to it pretty well. They manage the GIS system, which is the Geographic Information System. This is all a lot of the mapping going on throughout the city is all happening on this team. And that's actually really, there's another slide for it, so I'll wait for that to talk more about it. a2gov.org, the website, that's been my baby for 12 years, and I'm passing the torch to new people. So then the electronic content management, that we manage with a number of softwares, and basically have Microsoft 365. We have what's OnBase, which is used for a lot of document management. We also use DocuSign for contracts. And then, A2 Central, that is our staff intranet that's run on the Microsoft 365 cloud, SharePoint Online. Also built that out. That's been a fun adventure. Enterprise calendaring, when you go and do calendaring on the website, or you see digital signage in Larkham City Hall, that's all stuff that the enterprise team built, and that's stuff that's pulling from the enterprise calendaring. And we have integrations in there to the Legistar system to pull that data in and display it on the digital signage. And there's a lot of business process engineering on both teams, on the apps team and the enterprise team. We kind of sit down in a similar way with our what we would call customers, which is the different departments. And we on both sides, we help walk them through, like, how do we want this to look? What makes the most sense? How can we make this more efficient for you?
So before we jump off this this screen, I just wanted to mention that the distinction that we draw internal between the line of business applications and the enterprise applications is, as Jake mentioned in the earlier slides, we have very specific software that supports all of the different departments. Those fall under the line of business applications, and they have individual application specialists who know that particular piece of software inside and out. Where enterprise is unique is that this is software that everybody in the city uses. So that's sort of the distinction we draw, whether it's, single departments falls under line of business, entire enterprise falls under the enterprise team. So and then for business process engineering, Jake mentioned that a little bit. And I think this is one of the favorite things that I do, that I've done since I've been here, just primarily because no matter how good a piece of software is, if you implement a bad process, the software will just exacerbate that bad process. So no matter how good the software can be, if we're not looking holistically at the process that it's trying to mimic or to make more efficient, you could end up with just a bigger mess. So I just wanted to give a shout out to business process engineering. So
a good shout out, Josh. I like business process engineering too. It's probably one of the more fun things we do because when we finish it, we can actually tangibly measure a lot of time. So it used to take me 5 hours and now it takes me 1 hour. That's a huge win, and makes everybody feel good about it. Now, the GIS side of the enterprise team is focused a lot on spatial data. So it's all mapping, it's all making sure that our maps are up to date. This actually has its fingers in everywhere in the city. There's planning data, there's parcel zoning, city assets, roads. Basically, when that software I mentioned, CityWorks, where they do work order management, that's spatial data that ties into GIS. Stream, which when you go and put in for a permit, you have to select on a map that comes from GIS. This GIS data ends up being kind of our information source for a lot of addressing, which is very, very important for all of our other software. So it needs to be correct. And the GIS team focuses pretty heavily on making sure that data is reliable, it's correct, and that we don't have problems. And that'll even come into play. We were just having some problems with some of our fire software, which is called Adachi, where the mapping was slow, and the GIS team was able to come in and help rebuild those maps to make them faster so that there wasn't any stuttering when the fire trucks are driving around. So this has its fingers in almost every aspect of the city, and you can find public maps online quite easily by going to the data catalog for Ann Arbor. Yeah, and then so for hagov.org, the way it's basically set up is we have that's our public website. There's a lot of department sites, and you can find a lot of data on those department sites. And we've tried over time to create many paths to get to the same data so that we don't want anyone to have to know that this is in planning. That doesn't make sense because that's not how residents think. So we've thought very conscientiously about how do people think about coming to our website. We've done user testing over time. We've gotten, U of M has been a good partner because we'll actually partner with some of their information design classes to help us come up with better information architectures for the website. But we do embed maps all throughout, so that GIS data is huge for, you put a park on a page, well, here's a map of the park, and you can actually see where water fountains are and things like that. We store the data catalog on the website, which also contains a wide variety of data from the business intelligence stuff that I mentioned previously, to mapping, to all sorts of in between. There might be some financial data on there. I know you can find all sorts of fun stuff. The city code is linked to on here, so you can find it more easily. The city budget and the budget guide, you can get to that on our finance site so that you can see if you wanted more transparency in our budget, you can find that pretty easily. You can also get property assessment information, so you can it'll link straight to what our property assessment platform, but you can basically find that quite easily in there, and obviously use it to launch off to pay taxes and things like that. You can also typically find, basically, since it is the launching point for everything, you'll find, we have ties into, the boards and commissions, so you can see public meeting agendas and minutes. It'll launch off to Legistar. Videos, which can be linking off to the CTN environment or just embedded in the page. There's the events calendar. There's, a lot of this, the website is the integral part that kind of lets residents find their way. We also have an AI-driven chatbot on there, which scans our site and can help residents find items. Okay, so some of the items that you may not realize that I'm saying we, it's not me anymore, so I can't say we anymore, that Kevin's team helps with is the water bill presentment and payment. There's been work done on that to make sure that those are more, work better. The water consumption data is linked up so that you can see that more effectively. And stuff like this is still hugov.org, but there's the FOIA request process. This is using some of our forms tools that can ingest that data, and then we have a whole backend process that can manage it on Sarah's side. And I'm sure she loves it. And then and the public engagement hub, Engage Ann Arbor, is a relatively new addition. And that's really fun, where it's lets you see all of the like construction projects and things like that often have public engagement associated with them. So public comment, or you just need more information about it, you can find it on that new public engagement hub. And that's replacing, it used to not be as useful on the website because people wouldn't always update it consistently. And now we have a more consistent platform. I did already mention the chatbot, that's Ask Ann. We also put our emergency alerts out there. That's on a tool called Everbridge. So you can get, and we do have alerting on the website too, so you can easily, see banners if there's problems. It recently happened with the boiled water advisory, just a couple weeks ago. There are email notifications on page changes. You can check for road closures, and then of course, election day line information. So if you wanted to see how long your precinct line was, that's where to go. Go to the website and you can find it. That was another one that I helped with quite a bit.
And it's award-winning. We were recognized by the Election Assistance Commission. So it is federally award-winning, that line tracker. So our IT department is the best.
It feels good because I built it. So I really like that. So that's one of the examples of where we built instead of buy, because there was nothing we could buy that would do what we wanted. And it worked really well. So we have that. And I've used it back when I lived in Ann Arbor. I would just go and check my precinct and be like, this is great. I love this thing. And you can do it too.
So one other fun kind of tidbit for folks is that part of the reason why we built the functionality around the FOIA requests is that we found that the number one most FOIA'd item was the FOIA log. So people were FOIAing what other people were FOIAing. So that's kind of what drove the desire for us to just put that information out there so that we no longer had to get requests for it, because we just made it available. So I always find that as a fun kind of tidbit. Okay, thanks, Jake. I really appreciate you jumping in. And so we'll move on. This slide is really about collaboration. The city does collaborate with a couple of different agencies. Primarily, we are able to recognize economies of scale, save some cost and some licensing infrastructure, that type of thing. We collaborate with Washtenaw County. We have several interagency agreements between us and them. They are in our data center, the enterprise content management that Jake was talking about earlier. And then we also do shared internet services with Merit as our provider. Those are three of the primary ones. And then we also have several outside tenants inside of our data center. Already mentioned Washtenaw County as part of the collaboration. Then AAATA, DDA, the district library, and then UMTRE. And then for those of you who don't know, UMTRE is the University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute. So the autonomous vehicles you see driving around town, that infrastructure feeds data back into our data center. So that's just some of the collaboration that we currently do. On top of the collaboration, Dave mentioned this earlier in his presentation, and this is a major undertaking. We currently have 2 active fiber networks. They are the iNet, which was the original one built in 2017, I want to say. And it is essentially about 35 miles of fiber optics that goes around the east and west sides of the city, and then there's a bisector that goes through the middle. We also have Tech Park fiber, which I think Dave mentioned. That's concentrated very much in the DDA area. And the future network is we will be running we actually just awarded the ITB a couple of weeks ago to a vendor to run to connect the city's fiber out to Ypsilanti and back in an effort to support Spark. So Spark, for those of you who don't know, is kind of a local incubator in town. And there's a Spark office in Arbor. They wanted to connect the Spark office out in Ypsilanti, and they were able to receive a federal grant that allowed that to happen. So that project will get kicked off fairly shortly. So those are kind of our 3 networks. All of the fiber that we have lots of dark fiber that is for lease. Obviously, any of the city departments and facilities, that's all lit fiber, which is fine for us to do. Then anything that anybody else would do, so this would be AAATA, DDA, the district library, Merit is another one of our customers, or anybody else who wants to lease any of our fiber, that's all dark fiber. We are not legally allowed to light fiber for any companies or for fiber to the home. We are not allowed to do that by state of Michigan law. We cannot do residential. We're not a competitor to Comcast or any of that stuff. We are not allowed to do that by law. So it's primarily there for other vendors or providers that can lease our dark fiber. Strategic planning, this is sort of the life's blood of the IT department. We spend so much time day to day fighting fires, no pun intended to the fire department, but fixing things as they come up, that this is our opportunity to take a more strategic view of the organization. Technology changes rapidly, as you can imagine. So this gives us an opportunity to meet with every department once every 2 years, where we ask about things that they see on the horizon, things that they want to do better, be more efficient, things that may or may not have a technology slant, but we want to hear about it because we're their partner. So some things we can manage, some things we can't, but we're always there to listen. As part of that, we also we reflect on the last 2 years, and did we accomplish what we set out to do over the previous 2 years? If not, do we want to carry those goals forward? Otherwise, sometimes they just fall off, right? Priorities change all the time. We're no different than any other organization. It could be new council members come in and they don't have the same priority as old ones. It could be, our city. Basically, our city strategy plan has changed and we want to move in a different direction. So this gives us an opportunity to really focus the deliverables that we provide to support the departments in their goals for the city's strategic plan. Just a couple of mentions of IT challenges. Supply chain, this has been a problem for a while, really since COVID. And this is, if somebody wants something immediately, sometimes there's days, if not weeks or months lead time to get things, especially around server infrastructure and that type of thing. Cost increases and inflation, this is huge. So we see the inflation numbers out there all the time, and our vendors are feeling that pain. They pass that pain on to us. We do our best to try to negotiate those prices down where we can. We do use open source where it's feasible. Obviously not everywhere, but we do try to do open source. Our data platform is open source and saves the city about $45,000 a year, which is great. Resource and vendor availability or quality. This is huge. And this has been a problem really. So I had Jake's job before I was IT director. So one of the biggest problems we had is you end up with big vendors come in and they buy up the little vendors. And so their response time and their quality of their product doesn't have to be as good if they eliminate the competition. And we run into that a lot, and it's frustrating. The other thing, it's not so much a problem now, but it was over the last few years, is that IT job market was hot. And so you would get a customer success manager or a client relationship person, and you would have them for about 6 months, and they would bounce to a new job, and then you'd get a new one. And that lack of continuity really became a challenge, because if you're changing vendor contacts every 6 months, it's hard for them to truly get a feel for what it is that we're trying to do and some of our pain points. Attracting and retaining talent. This is a huge one as well. Obviously, we're the government, so we don't pay as well as some other folks. We do have great benefits package to offset that, but it's always going to be a problem. Teleworking. So a lot of times we've got staff that are working not at city facilities. So it becomes very challenging to troubleshoot items when now you've introduced, their home internet or their home PC or whatever it is. You've got a whole different set of variables that you now have to work with. Fast pace of technology. I mean, everybody's talking about AI, and AI is going to be the next great thing. And that's certainly true, but technology is constantly changing, and it's difficult for us to stay abreast of all of the changes in technology. And I feel for Jen and her team with how fast the bad people are. They're just getting good, and so Jen and her team have to be just that much better to save us. And that factors into cybersecurity. We're always on the lookout for bad actors. Trying to be safe, trying to do the best that we can. We've heard of a couple local municipalities that have had security breaches just within calendar year 25, and we're always mindful of that and ways to try to avoid that and mitigate those challenges. And that sums us up. Hopefully we're good for time. I will stop sharing and we'll take a look at the Q&A. Did any of the IT managers want to add anything before we jump to Q&A? This is very sweet. So Erica said, have to say you all rock. What a fantastic team of public servants. Great info and excellent work. Thank you very much, Erica. We very much appreciate that. Josh says, for the FOIA request list, is it possible to add downloads for the results? I'm not sure if that's practical or allowed legally, but there are many I'd be interested to see. And filing a FOIA for a FOIA seems redundant. Jake, you want to answer that one?
I'm going to kick that to Sarah, actually.
Okay.
It is not legal. I will say though, Jake and I were just talking about this because he built my FOIA system, and it is so great that other people, vendors that I have met with, have been like, wow, I can't believe that you got all of that. But the amount of FOIAs that we're getting now are about 3 times as much as we were getting a few years ago. I think that we will need to move pretty soon here to a system. And a lot of these systems, what they do have is that you can do quick requests, and you can pick out which ones you want. And then it'll send a request, and then all that I have to do on my end is just approve that request, and then it sends it to you. Is some of the things that I have seen in the space. So we might be moving to something like that in the near future, but for right now, I would say we do still need to have that request legally from a person that they want to obtain X, Y, and Z FOIA request.
Thank you, Sarah. Moving on to the next one. So David Stone says, what new trends in IT do you think will have the greatest impact on our work? I will answer my opinion, and then I'll open it up to the rest of IT for their opinion. For me, it's AI. I think that it's not just a buzzword, and I don't think it's going anywhere. I've been to a couple of conferences where public leaders are really trying to learn how to use it. And I can tell you that our city administration staff is really, really big on AI. But what I have been cautioning them on is that AI, right as it stands right now, generative AI is really kind of what I'm talking about. It's not the it's not RoboCop. It's not having drones flying all around. It's nothing like that. It's the ability for us to be more productive with less time. So there's always new things coming up, and what generative AI really allows you to do is you can create resolutions. And when I say create, I mean first passes at least. So you don't have to do the legwork of creating some of these things. You can do PowerPoint presentations. You can write code. It's just crazy that you can type into a chatbot what you want it to do in what language you want, and it will spit you something back that with a little bit of fine tuning will do what you want it to do. So for me, I think that's the good side of AI. The bad side of AI is people are using it to generate fake emails, right? So they may reach out to us and pretend to be one of our vendors and say, "Hey, by the way, my federal ID changed. Can you send me some money at my new bank account?" Things like that. So AI can be good in if it's used and harnessed correctly, but it's also a very powerful tool for those bad actors that we already mentioned. So for me, it's AI. I'll open it up to the rest of the team for what
I
they think.
agree with AI. I think it has. I've spent most of my career trying to automate myself out of a job, and I've failed. But AI might have the first impact where it's not like it's. I don't feel like it'll take my job. I feel like we'll still need IT people. But what it can do, like Josh said, is make us so much more efficient. I mean, something where a staff member can talk to an AI about a common problem, and it can give them a solution right away. We don't have to have a staff ready and waiting. They can be doing other work. So I think AI will free us up to do more challenging work more regularly. I do think stuff like deep fakes, I mean, deep faking Josh is something I've always wanted to do, but this would let me, would let someone do that and then request money. So hop on a meeting with Josh. It's not really Josh. So that's scary. So there's a lot to that. I think that has that'll be the most transformative in the next decade or so.
I'll just echo that. And, I'm always wearing my security hat. So I think one of the biggest fears that I have, AI is really a game changer. And one of my fears is the seniors and elderly, deep fakes and other things can be really used to, trick people out of money. There's all kinds of scams that people fall for. But, just thinking, I had a family member reach out about like a new movie they were looking forward to see. And we looked at the picture and I looked at it and I said, that's AI, that's fake. So, things that, us younger people are going to be a little bit more in tune to understanding what AI is and isn't. A lot of people are going to fall for it hook, line, and sinker, and a lot of bad guys are using it to really hone their craft. So it's not going to be some very sketchy email from a Nigerian prince with tons of typos. It's going to be run through AI, and it's going to be a lot more targeted and a lot more directed to your situation. So unfortunately, the bad guys also have AI, and they're going to use it to up the ante on how risky the environment online already is.
Dave, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, on the AI front also, it's even coming into the network world. So, a management platform will have AI built into it. So it'll analyze your network. You can say, I'm having a problem between point A and point B. This AI will go out and look at your network and analyze it, come back and say, well, this is a misconfiguration over here. And do you want me to fix it? And it will actually go out and fix it for you. So, AI is making its way into every aspect that IT touches now. We just have to be very careful with moving, on in the future with this. So
But it's certainly a very powerful tool. I think Ask Ann supports, do you remember, Jake? It's over 50 languages. So that in and of itself, in a a multicultural city like Ann Arbor, that's amazing that we can reach such a broad swath of our constituents without really having to do anything but implement a tool that leverages AI for the good to be able to communicate with those folks. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. All right, Leslie Smith. Years ago, there was a lot of buzz about wireless Washtenaw, free Wi-Fi for everyone. Has the state of Michigan banned that initiative? Short answer is I remember the buzz. I remember wireless Washtenaw, and I don't remember why it went away. Dave, do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It was the big talk way back in the day, and I
Mhm.
know the company that was kind of overseeing it, I believe they went out of business. I can't verify that, but I have not heard that term in probably 5 years or more.
I was thinking there was funding problems, kind of to your point about them going out of business, but
Yeah,
I think the project wasn't financially funded start to finish, and that's kind of where
right.
it languished.
So what I can do, Leslie, is I can research that answer and I can provide it to Sarah, who can provide it to you. So hopefully that will work. So. All right. Lauren Dunlop says, does IT oversee a centralized traffic management system with light timing and transitions? We do not. We actually have a traffic department that manages all of that. Their data is in our data center, and the cameras all run through our infrastructure. But as far as the timing and all of the management of that system, that falls under a separate department for traffic. Did I get that right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our traffic engineers that design the flow of the traffic, and we have our signs and signals department that actually work on the traffic signals. They work on the traffic controllers, all the equipment in the intersections. And as Josh was mentioning earlier with the Tree project, they are heavily integrated with the University of Michigan on the connected vehicle project, and all that equipment that Tree puts out there is connected in these intersections to be put on our network after it collects the data from the cars as they drive through.
I think the only other things I'd add in having, supported the traffic group, they have servers, so obviously I'm helping giving them servers for them to run their products. They have run some things that are kind of considered state of the art in the country, and a lot of their software vendors will be coming to Ann Arbor to demo the fact that the Ann Arbor has been doing some of the frontline technologies, and I can say that going back. I've been at the city 17 years and I remember seeing some of that stuff firsthand with traffic early on. The other thing is that I've always thought was very cool and I didn't understand until I worked at the city was, University of Michigan game day, you've got to get 100,000 people in and out of the city. And that traffic software and those traffic engineers are working on game day. I know you're sitting in traffic and you're thinking it sucks, but it would be much worse if those people weren't working on a Saturday to facilitate getting everybody in and out as quickly as possible. So I always thought that was very cool to see.
And then last, Tess says, great presentations and thank you for all the information. You are very welcome, Tess. And so unless there's any, we got about 2 minutes left. I would just like some closing remarks and I'll open it up to the team. I want to thank you guys all for showing interest in what it is that we do. As I mentioned early on, we're IT, we're sort of in the background. We're public servants. We do this. It's a labor of love. We love providing the service to not only the lines of business that do the great work that supports all of you folks, but tangentially, we love supporting all of you. We all love Ann Arbor. Most of us have been here for a very long time, which is it's sometimes rare today. And I plan to be here till I retire. So thank you very much for your interest and your attention. Thank you for the great questions. Oh, we did get another one. It sounds like infra is split across two physical data centers and cloud. Are the physical locations city-owned or leased? Guessing it has generators given the DTE record for reliability.
We do have two physical data centers. They are within city facilities, so that is our own location. We most definitely have generators, and thankfully my facilities team oversees that. So my responsibility comes into heating and cooling for the room, and we do have UPS, which is uninterruptible power supply. Think very big batteries, and those batteries protect us. And facilities oversees generators that kick in when utility power from DTE is down for 7 seconds.
We got 1 minute left. Thank you all again. Anybody on the IT team, last minute closing thoughts?
Nope.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for letting us participate. We really love this every year.
Thank you all so much. As I said before, I sing so many praises for our IT department. They are truly the best in the state, in my opinion. So, and my opinion obviously holds a lot of weight. So, okay, everybody, thank you so much for engaging. This was such a great session, 2 sessions. Next week on Tuesday, we are going to be doing police, and that will be in person. We will be meeting in Larkham City Hall at 6:30 on the dot. And if you are not coming to that session, then we are having a regular session on Wednesday, and that one is going to be transportation. That one is a Zoom session. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. And thank you all so much. Have a great night.